In this episode of The Tripod.
Man, I think you look better with the wide angle. Just saying, like.
Yeah, my wife is short-sighted. So.
Welcome to The Tripod.
Hello, everyone.
Solid start, Shawnee.
My mind
Solid start.
I literally said hello, and my mind went completely blank.
Okay, take a breath and go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 41 of The Tripod. My name is Sean O'Riordan. I am the youngest host of this podcast.
And definitely the giddiest at times.
I don't know what's wrong with me. It just went blank. Like, literally, I said hello, and I went blank. My mind just... It's like I've never done this before.
Given the issues we had pre-recording there, the two of yous are in the bloody amateur hour here.
Oh, God almighty.
Tell them the story, Kev.
I couldn't get into my email address and I thought, it doesn't matter. I just forgot my password, basically. Very simple. Very straightforward. Happens to the best of us.
He's fuming about it.
We're on episode 41 and Kevin couldn't remember which account we sent to clean.
Here, look, at least I can speak past the word hello, alright? Hello. And that is it. End of sentence.
I just went blank. I don't know what happened to me.
It's alright, but look, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, thanks. How's it going? How was your week? Oh, God.
Grand. Yeah. Fed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've certainly hit a wall with it. You know what I mean? I am done. I'm over it. I'm over it all.
It is tough to stay positive sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, like,
haven't taken any photographs in weeks. Haven't really done anything in a while. Yeah, it's just like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, just sick of it. But it's podcast time.
Yeah.
Podcast time is always good time. So,
and you always feel better after talking to us for an hour.
100%. 100%. You could be in the worst mood ever, which is rare, but you could be. And, you know, an hour later, you're laughing. Literally laughing because Sean can't control himself half the time.
I had literally tears running out my eyes here after that.
So, look,
my
it's grand.
eyes
It's just
are moist.
It's a pain and it's hard to stay motivated. But obviously, you know, we'll do our best, won't we? We'll try and motivate the people, rally the troops.
We're going to look back on this and we're going to laugh. We're all going to...
We will laugh.
Next year, 2022 will be our year. I can feel it in me waters.
I hope you're right.
I'm the same as you, Kev. I'm living a better life without Instagram. I'm not going to lie.
Are you?
Yeah. Without... Like, I love helping people out and stuff, but I get loads of messages every day, which is like, it's nice to be messaged. It's nice to be the person people turn to. But people message me for advice and stuff all the time. And it was just like, I was at a point where my business was being hit and things were just going downhill, stuck at home with the kids. And it was like, I need to turn to someone for help. But like, I couldn't. So I just got rid of the Instagram because I wanted to take time for myself to help myself.
Good.
So
no, look,
I'm feeling better for it though, to be fair.
Fair play.
Sometimes you have to be selfish.
I genuinely considered it. And I know that might come as a shock to Sean, but I genuinely considered it, and then I bottled it because I had FOMO. Like, I was panicking.
Such FOMO. You can't even turn off your notifications. Never mind delete them.
No, honestly, I was thinking about it. Like, I was just like, you know, because you ever get to a point where you're like, what am I doing this for? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? What is the purpose of me doing this? Like, why am I doing this? And I had one of those moments. It was yesterday morning. I was just like, what? Like, what is this? What is the point of me actually, you know, being on this app, taking photos, processing photos, editing photos, uploading them, and then just, you know, like, I was just like, why am I doing it? What do I want to gain from this?
Yeah, I always have that internal conflict as well in these conversations in my head. Like, it's just, it actually blows your mind thinking about it. It's like you start overthinking it then, and it's just. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I was thinking, like, what, you know, what do I, like, what purpose do I want to, you know, gain from uploading this photo? Like, what do I want from that? And then look, it all comes back to the Mark McGuire episode, doesn't it? Really, it's the dopamine hit. But
it was that man we were chatting about, Jack, because Mark was kind of I was kind of chatting to him before, but he was kind of feeling the same. He said like he wasn't even getting the superficial hit anymore off of features and stuff. Like yeah. He just kind of
like features. I think you always get a buzz. I mean, like I even found there was a little while ago there where like obviously people comment and you're like, nice one, thank you, cheers, nice one, happy days, thanks, cheers, nice one, cheers. You're kind of like you're going through the motions almost, and it's like what am I doing this for? And then. Yeah, it's a weird
funny one.
It is.
It seems just to be the way things are evolving, though. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of like I don't know what's the word for it. It's kind of a necessary evil in ways.
It is. It absolutely is. You're right.
That's not what this episode is about, though. Even though I'd love to.
Oh yeah, sorry. Apologies.
This episode, folks, is all about telephoto lenses. Okay, and we're going to discuss telephoto lenses. Why certain.
Did you notice my camera froze there and I was frozen like...
Yeah, that's what made me laugh. And
I thought you were just chilling. I thought you were just relaxing.
Like it turned around and I could just see me talking into the camera, and that made me laugh. Gee. Okay, see, come on,
sorry,
Sean.
Apologies.
Get it together.
Get your head in the game.
Get it together, okay? Like Ron Burgundy, I'll read whatever's on the teleprompter. Okay.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So we're talking telephoto lenses, and basically I'm going to have a couple of Ronan, don't write anything down and put it up to the camera. I know what you're going to do. We're going to talk about what lenses might suit you and your needs, and why you may not need to blow $2,500 on that expensive 70 to 200.
Read it.
Say it, Sean.
Nipples.
It's the funniest
nipples.
word ever.
Written on a sheet, like
he
come on,
has nipples. That's going to be turned into a soundbite anyway.
But first, lads, I wanted to touch on something that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago.
Was it nipples?
No, it wasn't. It was in relation to tripods. Okay. And I spoke very passionately about how I loved leaving the tripod at home and shooting handheld and run and gun style, very documentary kind of photography, and how freeing it was. And a lot of our listeners agreed with it. Because I remember I put it up in my own story, and as kind of like podcast research, I called it. And I said, is a tripod necessary to be a successful landscape photographer? And 56% voted yes, 44% voted no. I got an awful lot of messages from the people who voted no, saying, no, not necessarily. It's much more freeing to shoot out a tripod. It makes you better compositionally, etc., etc., etc. And I agreed with them. Now, I was out shooting sunrise the other morning within my 5K. And the benefit, one of the main benefits I found, lads, with a lot of the running I've been doing recently, is that when you're running the road, you pick out so many compositions because you're trying to keep your mind off of the pain in your legs. So you're looking into the fields and you're looking into the countryside and you're like, oh, that's nice. And I found this lone tree. And it's a really nice...
Sean loves a lone tree. We all know that you adore a lone tree.
I'm going to go out on a whim and say this image is in my top 10. Okay, it's a nice image. And I went out for a run one day. I saw this tree. I'm like, okay, I need to shoot that, but I want to shoot at sunrise. So I went back the next day. I took out photo pills. I lined it up. Okay, the sun is rising to the right. So if there is a nice sunrise, there'll be colour behind it. Perfect. Yeah. And I came back and nice sunrise one morning. Cut a long story short, I set up the camera on my tripod. I put the camera onto the tripod. I framed up the composition. I had my remote shutter release, and I started just taking the image, firing off exposures. And in the meantime, I had the drone up and stuff. But it was so nice just to stand there, camera on the tripod, and just listen to the dawn chorus, take it all in, breathe the fresh air. Do you know what I mean? It was just it was such a nice, peaceful time, like, to be taking a photograph, because the camera was on the tripod. I didn't have to worry about holding it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it all kind of came together in this one image. So
listen to the dawn chorus. You're such a sweetheart, John. Do you know that?
That's what it's called, Kevin.
I know, but like, you're
The
so like,
birds singing.
you're a real romantic when it comes to photography. It's beautiful.
Thank you. This was Mooney Goes Wild on One.
Lads, I'm trying to tell a serious story here, like professional story.
I'm enjoying it, Sean. I'm
Okay,
just telling you
right.
it's really lovely.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Don't give out to Kevin, Sean. He's listening.
Just saying it's nice.
But basically,
Christ.
do you see what I'm saying? Like the tripod has its place.
It does.
Of course we
You know what I
do.
mean?
It's a place in the hearts of all of our lovely listeners.
Yeah. We are essential listening when you're out. Don't mind that Dawn, whoever she is.
Yeah. Delta Dawn or whatever.
Oh, it's
Well, I'm
interesting.
What I'm
Sean,
saying is
that,
don't
like,
burn the tripods yet. Like,
yeah, because we literally, was it 5 episodes ago? We're like, burn your tripods. And even Rachel Talibard was like, stick them in the sand and leave them there. Good luck.
Yeah.
Go on the tripods. But yeah, like the counter argument is also there. I've definitely been able to create stronger photographs with a tripod.
yeah,
As in, the benefits the tripod give you cannot be overstated as well. So it's mad, like, because there you were able to fly your drone and all that and still have your camera set up
Yeah.
compositionally. Like, that's unreal to be able to go and fly your drone. And then, like, if the sunrise doesn't happen on the camera, you're not missing out because the drone is in the sky. If you were sitting there twiddling your thumbs, holding the camera, waiting, then maybe that's not the best strategy. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. Agreed. So it was just when I was standing there that moment, I was like, God, like I really feel like a hypocrite now after telling people just to go out and shoot handheld all the time. This is probably the most fun I've had taking a picture in a long time, you know. But I remember Thomas Heaton done an episode on it. He released a couple of photos actually. He didn't even vlog, and I think he went into like the Highlands hiking, and he just brought his gear, no tripod, just his Fuji and his couple of lenses, and he said it was the most fun he had. But yeah, tripods have their place, and definitely kind of, especially if you do a bit of exposure blending and stuff and bracketing, tripods are really kind of
Bracketing,
they really make it easy for you then, like, you know.
Yeah, the next time I get to leave the house now, because I haven't had much time at all. I've been so busy. There's a couple of nice things within me 5K, but I'm determined the next time I go out to leave the tripod at home, and I'm only going to bring my 70 to 200 because I love my 70 to 200 on a wedding, and I find it a lot easier to find compositions. Like, I shoot telephoto lengths a lot of the time anyway in my landscape photography, but I just want to go out dedicated handhold to 70 to 200, walk through the woodlands or something and see what I come back with, just out of pure
Speaking
curiosity.
of hand-holding, can I come?
Can we hold hands and skip? Social distance.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait till we can travel the county again. Do you know that? Look, because obviously we're so close to each other, yet still so far because it's not like 10K. We can't meet in the middle even. You know what I mean? I can't wait for that. I miss that.
It's going to be deadly. We're going to do so much. We've been saying it for almost a year now, but it's going to happen eventually.
It is going to happen.
It's going to be amazing.
We've so much planned. Ronan, that was a lovely little segue and transition.
That was a delicious segue, mate. Well
I know
done.
what you're at. We're speaking about telephoto lenses here, do you know? And you spoke about a telephoto lens.
Oh, you didn't even cop that. Yeah, go on.
Oh yeah. You're clever.
Yeah.
That's how clever you are, Ronan. It's all like subliminal messaging. Isn't that what it's called?
I genuinely, I didn't even twig what I was saying. Like,
Really? I was giving you the eyes and the finger and all there. Well done.
I was wondering, no.
Well, we are talking
I'm greater than I thought I was.
You're God among mere mortals, Ronan Harden Downs.
Telephoto lenses in this podcast, okay? And basically, I have a couple of options made out here for the lovely listeners, for all brands from Nikon, Canon, Sony, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji. Okay, so we're trying to cover as many bases as we possibly can here. And basically, I'm going to speak about telephoto lenses from a landscape photographer's point of view, and why you may not need to go out and spend $2,500 on that heavy f2.8. Okay? So I'm going to dive straight into that firstly, and then I'm going to leave my lovely co-hosts come in with their 2 cents. Okay, so the telephoto lens I have is the Nikon AFP 70-200. It's an f4.5 to f5.6 VR lens. I bought it second hand from an absolute gentleman and very talented photographer, Shane Brennan. If you don't follow Shane on Instagram, you should. His handle is SOB Photos. He's almost a Simon Baxter of Ireland. He's just unbelievable in the woodland. But I bought it off of Shane, and I cannot believe how sharp that lens is. And I only paid 300 for it off him. It's immaculate condition, basically new, and it's perfect for me. It's light, it's sharp. I don't need a fast aperture, because the majority of the time when I'm shooting a landscape, I'm going to be shooting at f8, f11, maybe f5.6 if I have something in my foreground I don't want in focus. So that lens for me is perfect, okay? And I have it here on Cons. So Cons have it very, very reasonably priced at €589, okay? Brand new. The Nikon 70-200 f2.8 VR then as well is 2,400, okay? Now, if I had the money, would I go away? Like, if money was no object, would I get the 70-200 f2.8?
Yes.
Yes.
You would.
Maybe I would.
No, you would.
But,
You definitely would.
But I would, yeah. But I would also have the 70-300 as well. Then I'd take that with me hiking, and it'd be nice to have the 70-200 f2.8 for if I was doing a wedding or a portrait or a video. But I don't do enough of that to justify the cost, because obviously money is a massive object. So the 70-300 AFP does me absolutely fine. So if you're a landscape photographer and you don't do anything else except landscapes, you don't need to splurge out on those big heavy lenses. Discuss. I have another couple. Will I go through a couple? Like every manufacturer seems to have a reasonably priced 70-300 lens. So Canon have one. The non-L series is 558. The L series one is 1500, so it's a bit dearer. The Sony has one that's 1200. Classic Sony. Micro Four Thirds have loads of options, like the 12-100 from Olympus, the 40-150 f2.8 if you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter is probably one of the best telephoto lenses I've ever used. Fuji have a reasonably priced one. Mr. Finnegan, if you're listening, Connor, the 55-200 f3.8 to 4.8, an excellent telephoto lens. Bear in mind, if you're shooting on a crop sensor or Micro Four Thirds, the focal length will be different. So for example, the Olympus 40-150 f2.8, that's technically an 80-300 f5.6 lens in terms of depth of field, but it still has the light gathering capability of f2.8. Because it's the 2 by crop factor. So every manufacturer has their expensive telephoto, and it also has their reasonably priced telephoto. I've always went to the reasonably priced ones. I've never needed the expensive heavy f2.8 version. There we go.
So I wouldn't have much experience with a telephoto lens, because the one I have doesn't count. It's a Sigma, it's muck. But I was going down to shoot Neil Young in Kilkenny, and I knew that the stage would be really high. I knew it'd be quite far away, so I called upon a dear friend of mine called Ronan Harding Downs and asked him could I borrow his lens.
I've heard stuff about him.
He's a legend. He's a legend. So Ronan, you had, or maybe still have, no, you don't have it anymore, do you? The 70-300.
I think I gave it to my mum.
Oh, that's cute. It was the f4.5, wasn't it? The
4.5 to 5.6 or 6.3.
Yeah. And it was the DX version though, wasn't it? It was the crop sensor.
Yeah, they're affordable. They're only like grey market €200, and if you want to go down to Cons or Barker's or one of those shops, they'd be no more than 300, 350, I'd say.
Correct. Yeah.
Some of the shots I got on that were better than, and I've no qualms in saying this, were better than some of the shots that I saw other photographers take that day who had the 70-200.
Yeah, fantastic
you know
little lens.
Is that because you had an extra 100mm focal length, would you think?
No, not necessarily. I don't think so. So I wouldn't have gone full kilter. Like, same as the Eddie Vedder gig. That was a very strange one because we were offset, like off the side of the stage, but very, very far away. Like no other lens was taken out that day. It was just like, and luckily I asked Ronan for that lens that day, because had I not have had that, I would have had no shots that day. But yeah, like there was a couple of lads there with, with the big boy lenses, and I went toe to toe with them with the affordable version, which is quite nice.
That speaks
nice
to the quality of you as a photographer as well, though, not just the lens.
Oh, Shawnee, you little
I do
sweetheart.
think, though, in the lens's defense, that there is some aspects of the lens's design that did help as well. I think Kevin has a point.
Definitely.
Not taking away from your skill, Kevin.
I agree.
Wow, you just took that compliment. You scrunched it up and you kicked it down the road.
It's just typical Ronan.
No, I'm not taking away from Kevin's ability, but Kevin makes a very good point that, like, Kevin is a talented photographer. He knows that with all these laser lights and all going off, how to manually use the camera to overpower it, which is a big factor of getting the most out of the lens. But the other thing is, I say to people when they're starting out and they're like, oh, I want a new lens, don't get Sigma, don't get Tachyna, don't get Tamron. These 70 to 300s, if you're looking for a zoom lens, typically they're not too expensive, and it makes a big difference when you're using native glass. So that Nikon AFP lens is built for Nikons, like from the ground up. Their whole system is designed around it. So from everything from the autofocus in it to the design of the glass, the spherical elements in it, how the light actually travels through the lens and then reflects onto the sensor, like all of that is engineered by Nikon. So those Nikon 70 to 300s will outperform any Sigma, Tachyna or Tamron variant without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that's why, like, they're a budget lens, but they really do punch above their weight. Like,
Absolutely. And I'm using it with the FTZ adapter, like on the Z6. So, like, that's another thing that could possibly hinder its performance. Like, sometimes the adapters don't work well, but it's absolutely flawless. I'm chuffed with it. I really didn't know, like, what it was going to be like. You know, like Shane, obviously I trusted Shane because he has tack sharp. Like, but yeah, I'm chuffed with it. You know, because telephoto lens in the landscapes, it's brilliant, such fun to use. But like,
it's all about that compression, isn't it? Like, delicious.
Yeah, it's just it's so handy. It's so cool to use. It gets really creative. But like, what I'm saying to the listener is, like, do you know what I mean? You may not need that big heavy lens, especially if you're only shooting landscapes. I mean, like, if you are setting a 70-200, but you only shoot landscapes, get the f4 version. Don't get the f2.8. You can get the f4 much cheaper. What?
You don't need the f2.8. Like,
I'm trying to think of any scenario in the landscape where you would need an f2.8 in telephone, and I honestly can't think.
Astro?
Unless you're doing deep sky Astro, even at that, if you're using it, you'd be using a tracker, so you could still get away with f4.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
So, like, yeah,
deep sky Astro is mental, by the way. It's
just
side note here.
Oh yeah, like, was it Anthony posted some images today in the tripod group of deep sky Astros? Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
I just can't even believe that's a thing, like, and that exists and people can do that. Like,
it's cool. Yeah, very cool.
Mad, mental.
Yeah. Speaking of trackers, I was on Amazon Germany today. I had the Sky Adventure Mini ready to buy, and they couldn't ship to my address. The dealer in Ireland is sold out. You literally cannot get Star Trackers anywhere at the moment. And I obviously don't want to bring it in from the UK because I'll pay a lot of charges, and coming in from China, I got a guy knows when it'll arrive. So yeah, I'm on the hunt for a tracker at the moment for Astro season.
Why do you think that is, Sean? Are we approaching Astro season?
Yeah, we are approaching Astro season. Yeah, middle of February. It's not even that though. I think COVID has just played havoc with it. I had one on order, and I think they got back to me and said that we won't have it for months. And at the time I was just like, oh, here, I got refunded, and I went to and just bought something else, bought a lens or something.
Kind of like me and my laptop.
Yeah.
Still don't have a phone.
I'd say there's a lot of people as well giving it a try, because, like, with a tracker and a telephoto lens with a big lens hood on it, light pollution probably wouldn't matter all that much, Sean, would it? Like you could still get fairly reasonable results with a telephoto on.
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, cloud would be the only thing that would really matter, you know.
Yeah,
no,
so something you could do in your back garden, like.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. No, you would need some of the track. You'd need a bit of a heavier tracker if you were going using a telephoto. So, like the one I was getting, the Skywatcher Star Adventure Mini, it's kind of recommended to use a focal length of 50mm or less, because obviously the bigger lens, the more the payload, and like a heavier rig, it'll have more trouble tracking, you know. Especially at like you're shooting 300mm, like, you know. But we'll do a whole episode on Star Tracker and astrophotography. I'm planning one because I know we're coming up to astro season. People might want to hear about astro. But coming back to our telephoto discussion, yeah,
we're good at rabbit holes.
That's just the teacher, like teacher bursting out of there. Now, come on, lads, back in, away from that tangent. Come on, bring it back in.
I'm very good at subtly bringing it back, though. Ronan, when I discussed the idea for this episode, you said that you had a couple of counter arguments. Did you call it, or because you're the telephoto, the bit of a master. Like you nearly shoot. Let's see, you shoot all your well, not all your landscapes, but you shoot a lot of telephoto, don't you?
I nearly exclusively shoot. I'm gonna say, to be generous, 50mm plus. Yeah. Because my landscapes, 99% of them are now some form of panorama. I don't really bracket or anything anymore, but I really love the compression you get. Like with a wide angle lens, the wider it is, the more you suffer from pancaking, which is the technical term. If you,
did you say
pancaking?
Pancaking.
Oh, pancaking. I was like, handcaking. I was like, what is this?
I guarantee.
Says the fella who knows the formula for hyperfocal distance.
He has a tattoo over his heart.
It's true, I do.
But if any of the landscape photographers out there, or even if you've just taken a snapshot on your 18mm kit lens, go in and look at the mountains in the background and draw a line across your scene, and I guarantee there'll be very little deviation in the height of those mountains, even though in real life mountains are tall and they should be bumpy and peaky and all that kind of crack. That's a result of the wide angle lens distortion, and it's the technical term that we're coining now is pancaking, and it flattens everything. When you use a telephoto lens and you zoom in on your subject, you're removing the wide angle distortion. So as well as getting that compression, you're also popping those mountains back up, any trees up. Like you're really giving a sense of scale back to the image. And that's when I'm shooting on a telephoto now, I do like multi-shot panoramas to simulate a wide angle shot, but to get all of that juicy pop and realistic landscape sizing and remove any distortion, because it just looks deadly. Like especially up the Wicklow Mountains, if you've been anywhere else in the world, you'll know the Wicklow Mountains are hills. They're the Wicklow Hills. Like they're no Dolomites, put it that way. But even at that, if you're shooting them with a wide angle lens, they're gonna look more so like little hills. So you really want to get the most out of them, especially like Glendalough. When you're standing at the upper lake in Glendalough and you're looking down the valley, you've got the Spink on your left and Camaderry on your right, and like they're two big pieces of land. When you're there, you feel minuscule. But if you look at any photo taken in Glendalough on a wide angle lens, draw a line across the middle. That big V-shaped valley looks like a little dip. It looks almost flat. Yeah. So I love to go up there and take a multi-shot panorama on the telephoto lens. Get right in there, 50, 70. Like most of mine were on my 100mm prime even at the time. So they were 100mm shots all stitched together. And that just deadly. The telephoto made the difference. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a really good point.
I was meant to give my counter argument, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just promoted this.
I just went off.
Yeah, you wouldn't be a good barrister here, Ronan. Don't go into law.
Yeah, it's like actually he should go down. Do you know he should? He is guilty.
Yeah. Even though I'm in the defence, the reason that this guy didn't do it, you know? Oh God.
My counter argument was, which as I think of it now after saying all that, may not be that much of a counter argument. But typically a lens is at its sharpest 1 or 2 stops above its lowest aperture. So for an f2.8 lens, it's usually around f4, f5.6. It'll be at its sharpest. At an f4 lens, that'll be f9 to f6.3 or something. Will be the kind of 1 stop above. I bloody hate aperture and stops. But
one down,
f8
one
now,
up.
it'd be 7.1 to f8 in or around would be. So that's quite dark. But for landscape photography, that wouldn't make much of a difference unless you have the handhold. So if you're a landscape photographer not using a tripod to get the sharpest possible image, you'd be using an f8 handheld. Whereas with the f2.8 lens, you'd be using f4 or f5.6. And depth of field wouldn't really come into it depending on what you're shooting.
Very good
Do you know
point.
what I mean?
Very good point. That is one, yes, I didn't even think of that, but you're right. That is one thing when I am hand holding and shooting the telephoto, my ISO would always be up around 800 to 1000, you know, just to make sure I have a fast enough shutter. Obviously, because on the long end it's f5.6 is my max, so I'd be stopping down then as well to, as you said, f7 or whatever. So yeah, that's a good point. So not so much of an issue on a full frame. It'd probably be more of an issue if you were shooting on a crop sensor, maybe, you know, where you mightn't have the high ISO performance. People have to remember as well that there is, like, let's just say for the Nikon version, there is a DX version of that 70-300, but obviously it wouldn't be 70-300. It would be, I don't know, 80 to 370, or would it be more, maybe 80 to 400.
Is it not if it's an actual DX version though? Is it not 70 to 300?
No,
it still gets
Still
multiplied.
get the extra.
So what's the Nikon crop factor? 1.7, is it?
1.6, I think.
So 70 by 1.6. Oh, that was way off. So it's
105.
1112 to 480. So 112 to 480 is your 70-300 on it, which is a nice focal length. That's into the wildlife territory, like, do you know?
You could shoot the moon and everything. If you put your
which we could touch on, like I've spoken about the much kind of the I suppose they're relatively small telephoto lenses. I mean, there are big boys out there, like Sigma have the 150 to 600. That thing's a monster. Nikon have a lens that I know I want, but I know I'd probably only use 2 times a year. It's 200 to 500 prime, unbelievable lens. Like they are massive. Like they're, do you know what I mean? You'd know about it when you have them in your camera bag. And
it's a bloody Canon.
Yeah, they're serious. You know, like I want one, like, just because they're class, like on the camera, do you know. But you really would want to know your genre and stuff when you're shooting with them, and even shooting handheld, you're definitely going to be up in the ISO there, because I mean you have to be shooting a very fast shutter speed there. What's the rule? Double your focal length, isn't it?
Double your focal length, yeah.
So if you're shooting at the 600 end of a Sigma 156, you have to be shooting at 1200. Like that's fast shutter speed. Like, and if in low light, in dawn or dusk, or I mean, you're gonna have to be shooting at ISO 3200 there, like, to try and get a properly exposed image, you know. Because what I have found, and this is actually another rabbit hole, but I've actually found that you're better off upping the ISO and exposing properly in the field rather than raising your shadows and stuff in post. I found that often increases more noise, you know, when you try and raise in post, as opposed to using a higher ISO and exposing properly in the field. Don't know, have either of you had that same experience?
I'd say I'm more likely to have than Kevin.
What's that supposed to mean?
You,
What are you joking?
you automatically think I'm going on the attack. I was going to say, because Kevin specialises in concerts where he has
course.
all sorts of adverse lighting, he wouldn't really focus on things like that.
Yeah,
But like, if you want to take that as an attack,
I'm
that's
just defensive, man. I've got my back up
I know.
now after that. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
poor
but it's
Kev.
like I've said nothing but nice things to you.
I know.
This
I
is
love,
the entire
I love you. I
episode.
love you both.
Kev, do you own a telephoto lens?
I mean, like, you know,
It's shite, is
a loose term, yes. Like, I have a lens that goes from 70 to 300, and I mean, it's okay for snapshots. It's basically, it's the Sigma 70 to 300 f4 to 5.6 DG macro lens. I think it was like 180 quid. I mean, put it this way. So it's like a telephoto and a macro lens, but it's shit for telephoto and it's shit for macro. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's got both, but they're both equally as bad. No, look, it's grand for... No, it's not. It was a complete waste of money. And, you know, you will learn. It's one of those... I learned a lesson. It wasn't that expensive of a lesson, but I learned a lesson nonetheless.
A 70 to 200 like f2.8 would be something that you could get a lot of use out of done in conscious
100%.
Yeah,
I have to get it. It's on my, it's next on my list. Yeah,
I'm getting at like the genres that may benefit from these fast telephoto lenses.
That's for like concert photography. An ideal, you know, money is no object. Like concert photographer, you've got your 24 to 72.8, you've got your 7200 2.8. That's all you need. 2 bodies. Yeah, don't need anything else. You've got everything there.
You'd probably even get away with like a fast prime, a fast like relatively wide angle prime, even a 35mm prime.
Yeah,
and a 7200 then.
Yeah, just don't buy cheap lenses, people. Because I bought that lens and it's like, such a waste. Like, yeah, it really is. Like, it annoys me. I even look at it and just think like resentment. So
you're a piece of shit.
Like you again. You know what I mean? What do you want?
Like, yeah.
If anyone wants to buy, a Sigma 7300,
it's like the ugly duckling.
Yeah, but like, put it this way: if Ronan gives you advice about buying a lens, just take the advice because. You know what I mean? You'll regret it.
I made the mistakes myself, in fairness. I remember when I had
the mistakes
that
so we don't have to. Yeah, I
300.
still made the mistake.
I remember when I had my one though, and it was literally like there was permanently a smear of Vaseline on the front of the lens. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the chromatic aberration, that like everything about it, it was like the inside of the lens was coated in oil or something. It was just like I couldn't make sense of it. Like you couldn't get a sharp picture out of it at all, no matter what you did. Like,
oh, that's hilarious. It was only
like this Sigma lens. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're quick, you're right.
Like this Sigma lens, like it's grand. Like, because you know, obviously with the kid and I've got nieces and stuff. Like, so if you want like nice photos of like the family, it's grand for that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you can tell that they were taking on like a DSLR with a lens rather than a phone photo. But that's it. You know, if you want a nice photo of some people in daytime, like you're doing all right. It'll suffice.
Yeah.
Other than that, good luck.
I know what you're saying.
Pointless. It was with regards to the macro side of it, like get out of here.
I've seen,
you're lying. Like
Sigma done an awful lot of those kind of lenses where they had macro in the title. I think it was just some form of advertising. Like a lot of telephoto lenses focus quite close, like you know. But I think Sigma just possibly slapped a macro on there just to try and pull a couple more people in.
And it's so noisy as well. By the way, like it is. I mean,
that's
one of the loudest things I have ever heard.
That's another thing. If you're shooting video, you need a lens with a silent focus motor, because there's nothing worse than when you're editing your video and you can hear you just hear the focus motor whirring away.
Allow me to demonstrate.
I would love if my camera made that noise, Sean. Mine's like, wow.
And the one time I won't do it. Oh. She doesn't want the autofocus. Oh, at least.
That sounds like there's someone scratching at your window.
Yeah,
Doesn't
hopefully,
it? Sounds like someone cleaning the windows or something.
hopefully the listener could hear that. But that was a prime example of what is not a silent focus motor. What's that run? The 7200, is it?
That's the 70-200 f2.8
That's one of the first gen ones.
ED.
though.
Yeah, the first gen ED lens.
Yeah,
But the
I would kill,
like
I would
that
kill for
Sigma-
that sound. That's a lovely sound compared to mine.
But the Sigma Kev has adding in that macro reach means that, like, they're called telecentric or something. I can't remember the word, but there's lenses that are specifically designed to focus within their focal length, so you don't get something called focus breathing. So that Sigma lens will actually, like, the front of the lens extends right out to focus and goes back in, and when you put it into macro, it actually goes further again. So you're getting all the glass and elements inside your lens pushing out and out and out, like into these big separate massive gaps where the light can go through and bounce everywhere, and your focal length isn't actually your focal length, because depending where you focused, the lens will twist and extend itself in and out to try and get focus. So like you could think you're at 150 millimeters, but you're actually getting up to 170 because the lens has had to twist out to focus to that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas
question.
Go on, Sean. Right,
What's focus?
Mr. O'Riordan with his hand up in the back.
What's focus breathing?
Focus breathing is basically, I'm going to give you as a visual aid because I have a camera here. So this is the
Love an
24-70 first gen, and see the way the barrel comes out the end,
Yes.
like this. But if I focus it, nothing moves.
It
But if
doesn't
you
move.
can see down the inside of it, you'll see, you can't really see it, but on the inside, the lens elements are moving in and out, but the lens itself stays the same size.
Okay.
Whereas if you have, I don't have my other lens, never mind. If you have like that Sigma lens that Kevin has, when you go to zoom it, the actual elements that focus are on the outside of the lens. So the lens itself pops in and out. You'll notice it on a kit lens where if you go to hold down the autofocus, if you have a filter kit on the front or something, the whole front of the lens moves in and out and spins, so your filter spins and all. That's the lenses like that, they're moving their focal length as they focus, and that's known as focus breathing. So you might think you're at 35 mil, but by the time if you're focusing really close, the lens is going to have to move its front element away from its sensor to get the light to come in and bounce properly. So you're actually at like 45 if you think you're at 35. I don't know the exact figures now, but basically like focus breathing will cause issues with the likes of focus stacking, because as you focus at the different places throughout your scene, you're actually at a different focal length. So when you go to mix all them together, you'll find like if you had something in your immediate foreground that was completely blurry when you were focused on your background, and then you focus on that in a separate photo and try and combine them, all of a sudden your background was another 40 or 50 mil away, because the focus breathing to try and focus on the foreground pushed your background right out. So the two separate photos cannot be blended because they're separate focal lengths. Do you know what I mean?
Sean, do you ever get really proud of Ronan when you're just listening to him there? Like,
I'm just like.
so I'm just sitting here in awe. I'm like,
you know what's good when Kevin starts saying anything like, you know what's good.
Factually correct.
I
I'm
always
sitting here like
panic when
in
the two
awe
of
of
yous
him.
are
Like,
in
man,
silence.
you are so good. Like,
So you just have to leave someone just riff like when you're talking like that, man.
beautiful.
Thank God, Ronan, you have the technical knowledge, because Jesus, this would literally just be a podcast of fellas.
I don't think this would be a photography podcast if you weren't here.
Wouldn't be it. No,
It'd be
I think it's borderline
be
anyway, to be fair.
3 mates every Saturday
fair
night
point.
chatting.
That is a valid point.
Yeah, but that's what makes us like, you know. We throw in the old photography nuggets of knowledge here and when Ronan does. But
Wait until you hear the first episode we record when we get to go on that trip to Donegal. That won't be a photography podcast in the least.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, we'll have to rate that over 18s, that episode. Yeah, there could be some orange juice consumed there in that Donegal episode. Hopefully we can all get together when all this is over and actually record an episode together in the one room and stream it and just have the crack, do you know? God,
2024 will be our year.
Ronan, I wanted to bring it back to something you mentioned there in the pancaking, right?
And caking. I'm joking.
Is
Kevin, go
pancake?
away.
I'm actually just thinking: is pancaking actually a term, or did you just make that up?
I'm fairly sure I heard Nick Page say it before.
Okay, right. Well, if he said it,
I just misheard Ronan. That's all.
Kevin,
Jesus, lads.
I didn't say anything, Kevin. Relax.
I'm only joking. I'm just defensive. That's all.
know you are,
I'm sorry.
yeah. Very
He has
sensitive.
been real defensive. I
You're
should
very
capitalise
sensitive.
on this.
No, don't. You could break me tonight, I'd say.
I've been so nice to you tonight in my
Yeah,
defence.
I know you
really have, but
I
this could be the one-
recognised you were defensive.
This could be the one where, like, Kev, the hook could just be like, Kev loses the plot.
One thing a telephoto lens will do in the landscape for you is create separation. Because I think that pancaking you're speaking about, Ronan, when you're saying like the mountains, you can draw a straight line and the peaks will all be the same height and stuff. Well, ultimately that's leading to a much flatter image, a much more boring image. Whereas if you shoot with a telephoto, especially in mountains, or if you're even anywhere really, you're creating compression, but you're also creating separation because you're focusing, or you're zooming in at a longer focal length. You're seeing the different heights in the landscape. You're seeing the different objects in like what's relative to one another, if that makes sense. Like, do you know what I mean? Like for example, prime example, if there's a lone tree and behind it there's a really, really tall mountain and you're well back from it, if you zoom in fully on that lone tree, that mountain appears huge behind the tree. So that creates a sense of scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another place it works like so well that I'd say everyone has seen it working really well and they probably don't realise it, is most churches have big grand roofs and the altar is quite large, especially like a cathedral church, like St. Aidan's down in Wexford. Like that altar, you'd need a 5mm lens to fit the whole thing in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you go down the back of the church, and in that 5mm doesn't exist, like a 10mm super wide shot, your couple would be lost in it because you're getting everything in. But if you go right down the back of the church with your telephoto lens, you can stick the whole, using your legs to zoom basically by getting further away from it, use the telephoto to compress all of that altar in with the couple in it, and you'll see the couple look taller and the altar looks like so big and massive and impressive. Like it just gives that, as you said, John, that sense of scale to everything, and it looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. And I suppose another really, really good benefit of a telephoto lens, just while we're here, is, pandemic wise, I mean, taking photos of people, if you're a portrait photographer, you've got a good telephoto lens, it could put people's minds at ease. So that is another
very good point.
Really good benefit, because people don't want to be near people, so like it's you can stay away and get the lovely shots. So
that's a very good point.
There's another aspect to that as well, Kev, because bokeh is one,
bokeh.
But as Peter Hurley said, you'll notice Peter Hurley didn't mention any wide angle lenses, because to shoot with a telephoto lens actually slims the face and it gives a better rendition of the human face, versus if you had to get a wide angle and stand nose to nose with your subject, they're gonna experience wide angle distortion as well. There's actually a good way to visualize wide angle distortion versus telephoto for portraits. If you go onto TikTok and go into create a new TikTok, they have a filter called face zoom, and it basically zooms in on your face no matter where you are in relation to your camera. if you hold your camera right in front of your face with the facing filter on, or put it on a little desktop tripod or something, and then step back away from it, you will see your face go from wide angle distortion to telephoto. Like you'll visually see
No way.
the, what's it called? The word, the barreling, or I can't remember the name, but you'll see your face go from smudged up wide angle distortion to pull it right the way out, and it'll squidge in.
Wow. Jesus.
Have a go of it there now. If you're listening, go on to TikTok as you listen to this podcast and give it a go, and do record it and save it, but don't post it to TikTok because you look like an idiot. But send it to us, and then we'll post it on our socials, so you look like an idiot for us.
I'd love it.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. You're getting exposure, and I mean, we all love it. I mean, we all know exposure pays the bills, doesn't it?
Exactly. There's no better way.
I was going to say, coming back to the Kevin, your point there on the telephoto lens and the portraits. Also, you can get really nice bokeh with an f4 lens if it's a telephoto.
Yeah,
because bokeh is, everyone thinks, and this is another rabbit hole, but here we go. Everyone thinks bokeh is determined by how fast your lens. Now, this is a landscape photographer speaking, so correct me if I'm wrong, okay? The two year experts in this field, but everyone thinks bokeh.
I'm an expert in no field, thank you very much.
Everyone thinks bokeh is determined by your aperture, wide open f2.8, but actually I found bokeh is determined by the longer focal length, how close you are to the subject, and how far away that subject is from their background. So if there's nothing behind your subject, okay, and you use a 70 to 300, you're at 300, and you're close enough to them, or sorry, even maybe let's say 200, 150, and you go up close enough to them, then you'll get really nice bokeh. But the farther away you are from them, the less your bokeh, I've found. Does that make sense? Am I correct there? Ronan is playing with TikTok.
Ronan's too busy TikToking.
I probably have just made. That was probably the most technically accurate point I've ever made on this podcast, where I actually tried to give people some knowledge, and you're playing on TikTok.
I was doing some research for the classes, all Mr. O'Reilly. I'm very sorry. And you're wrong as well. So.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, sir.
You're not actually wrong now when you're messing. But there's a couple of elements and things at play to do with bokeh. It's easier to get bokeh with a really wide aperture and a longer focal length, because as you say, you can be closer to your subject, and using the compression, you're also pushing the background further away from your subject. But that's only if you focus on your subject. So your focus is actually coming into play there as well, because if you were to focus to the background and have your subject standing in front of you, then you wouldn't have like the foreground bokeh that you would have a little bit, like, because your subject's right in front of you. But the background, then the focus would continue on to infinity, so there'd be no further bokeh behind that. So it is to do with the distance between your subject and background, and then whatever focal length you're using, but also dependent where you actually focus. So if you get really, really close to someone with your kit lens at 55mm and f5.6, I think it is the lowest aperture, which isn't quite a wide aperture, but if you get really, really close to them and focus on them, you will see some bokeh, because it's the same principle. It's just a lot easier with a longer telephoto.
Gotcha.
You know, the word bokeh just means blur.
Yeah.
In Japanese.
Yeah.
Does it? Is it Japanese?
It's a lot
word?
prettier than blur, though.
Bokeh. Yeah, it's a Japanese word. It just means blur or haze. So.
Did not know that. Did not know that at all.
Every day is a school day with the tripod.
Every day is a school day, absolutely. Yeah, folks, that was our episode on telephoto lenses. It kind of came into my head because I was kind of thinking, God, I would not like to be lugging this big heavy, because I obviously do a lot of hiking or walking or whatever, and I would not like to be lugging this big telephoto lens. And I think some people genuinely might think that, like, they won't be able to rationalise why they wouldn't need a 70-200 f2.8. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, if you're a versatile shooter and you do a bit of weddings, you do a bit of landscape, etc., then, and you can afford it, by all means, get
If you've
fast
won the
lens.
lotto, no, I'm joking.
Yeah. But if you're like me and you just 99% of the time shoot landscapes, I mean, Mark Fletcher there a few weeks ago. Oh, it's actually more than a few weeks ago, probably before
Great
Christmas.
lad, by the way. If you're listening,
Mark's a
Mark, how are you
legend.
doing?
A man that has come on leaps and bounds in his photography from when he started, and he's probably the most humble, nice guy you could ever meet.
Sweetheart.
Yeah,
Well, I've never met
absolutely.
him, but just virtually.
Just
he's a
loves,
lovely fella.
just loves being out with the camera. Doesn't matter. Like, he went out yesterday, last week. It was raining. He just went out to Glenbarrow, I think, or somewhere in where he usually shoots there, and just shoot lovely shots of waterfalls. You know, just loves being out with the camera.
He loves a waterfall shot, doesn't he?
He's excellent at it.
Good
yeah.
man, Mark. Good man.
Yeah, he just loves being out.
We
But
know
Mark
you're
was
listening,
looking
so
for
good
Mark was
man.
looking for a telephoto lens, and he was looking at the Canon 70-200, and I sent him this Canon 70-300, and he actually got the L series one, the 7300 f4 to f5.6, and he got it cheap enough on eBay. And I was like, man, that'll do you perfect. Like, you're only shooting landscapes, you don't need the f2.8. And he was chuffed. Like, he's like, yeah, geez, like I didn't need the f2.8. I didn't need that big heavy lens. You know what I mean? So, just the takeaway message for this is, look at what you're shooting. Do you know what I mean? And kind of see, do you actually need to spend that extra few bob to get the fast lens? And if you don't, then there's lots of good, reasonably priced options across all manufacturers for good telephoto lenses. Now, we didn't really touch on, we kind of touched on it, but not much, like the big boys. Like, there's a lot of big boy lenses there as well, like the 150, the 600s, the 200s, the 500s. You can get prime telephotos as well, but we'd be here all night if we were talking about them, do you know. Again, it comes back to just analysing your needs, analysing what you're shooting, and seeing what would be best for you. And as long as you stay away from Kevin's Sigma, then you're going to get a sharp lens.
Yeah. Honestly, people, listen, if you take anything from this episode, just don't buy that, okay? Speaking of big boys, just one thing I did notice, obviously friend of the show, Peter Hurley, is primarily a headshot photographer, but he also takes photos for the the NFL, sorry, COVID on the brain, the NFL. he had
service in
I
England.
know, yeah. He had the Canon 600mm on his monopod for the NFL it wasn't the Super Bowl, it was the game before the Super Bowl. But like, this thing is, I mean,
600mm f2.8.
ridiculous. I mean, the
man.
size of this thing alone, like it's literally an arm. He has an arm attached to a monopod.
I'd love to shoot with him. Yeah.
That's the greatest picture I've ever had in my head. Just Peter Hurley there with an arm on a tripod.
That's an absolute beast, though.
But like, it's ridiculous. I mean, imagine having a go at that. Like, even I'd be afraid to even hold that bloody thing.
Yeah, same. Do you want the glass inside it? We are hoping to get a wildlife photographer on here, because obviously they
That'd be
would
amazing.
The telephoto lens expert. Except for there's a wildlife photographer, and everyone should follow him. His name is David Yarrow. Have you heard of David Yarrow?
Yarrow. No?
David Yarrow, lads, listeners, follow David Yarrow. His work is unbelievable, and do you know why it's unbelievable? He uses wide-angle lenses to photograph wild animals.
No way.
So
He's
cool.
obviously like at one with the birds and like friends with the fish.
No, he couldn't be
Cozy
at
with the
one because
cattle.
he's photographing tigers and lions with a 20mm lens that he'd be eating. He sets cameras up on like tripods and sets them up
yes.
on remote timers, lads. His
Unreal.
elephant shots in general are just and that's why his work is so unique, because he's shooting with a wide angle and it's not the typical telephoto. He's his when you're high up and you're zooming down or you're focusing down on an animal, that's a tourist shot, he calls it, because it's like you're above them. He has shots where you're below
He's
them.
in there,
it's unbelievable.
That sounds phenomenal.
Look him up, David Yarrow.
Can we get him on the show?
Possibly, yeah.
I'll get him on the show.
Yeah, why not?
Let's
Why
do
not
that.
try it? Yeah, sure. We're waiting for Peter.
Listeners, we'll have him on next week. No, I'm only joking.
It's the most planning we've done this year.
I know, yeah. We'll try get this guy on the show because that sounds ridiculously good.
Just look him up. But yeah, guys, that's it. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you anything else to add, Kev?
Don't forget, everybody, that
Sensitive
you're
Kev.
all tripod ambassadors.
Tripod ambassadors.
That was beautiful. That was heartwarming to see, wasn't it, Ronan?
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it was a little bit of light in a time of darkness.
Yeah.
Oh,
when
Jesus.
everything felt a bit wishy and washy, but at the same time doomy and gloomy. But the tripod ambassadors out there sending us in the pictures of the hashtag tripod ambassador now. It was sunshine on a stormy day. It was gorgeous. It's lovely.
I was waiting for you to break into song there, like so I was.
So was I didn't know where you were going with it either.
Yeah,
So
I
I
was
was
like,
I want to see the sunshine in the rain. Didn't know where he was going. though.
I sent you a TikTok to the WhatsApp group if you want to react to it before we actually officially finish the episode.
Let's have a
Listeners, just talk amongst yourselves there.
So Ronan,
You have my
I
permission
see
to
Ronan's
post this
face.
on the Instagram story if you want, because like,
Oh,
I don't
Ronan,
really care.
you look good at 85 mil.
Okay,
It
so
takes about 40 stone off.
so now when you're at the back, you're
Okay, so at the very start of the clip is the equivalent of shooting someone with a wide angle lens up close.
okay.
And then the end of the clip, I've moved away from the phone and the phone has zoomed in as if it's using a telephoto lens.
Okay.
And like watch the sides of my face from the start to finish and you'll see them completely change.
But I think you look better with the wide angle. Just saying, like.
Yeah, my wife is short-sighted. So. It's rare my
Sophie is a-
feelings get hurt on this podcast.
Sophie has a 14 mil.
That's the 5mm and an f8.1 aperture.
Oh, lads.
That's a lovely way to finish.
I mean, I think that's just got to be. Class.
Thanks, Ronan. Thanks for that. That was.
You're very welcome.
But it's a point well illustrated. I see what you mean. So the listeners should do
Don't
it.
be trying to be professional now. After that
I know.
outburst.
I know. Yeah, I tried to bring it back, but I can't.
He's like a jowly insurance hound. What does his wife see in him? Shut up, Sean O'Riordan. Dirty father.
No, hang on a second. I didn't see what your wife. I didn't say anything about that, man. I just said you look great. And like no one looks.
I'm
Actually,
just
it's
trying
a
to blacken your name.
It's a compliment to you because no one looks great shot at a wide angle, and you do. So I was
That's
actually
because
giving you
there's a lot of
compliment.
wide here to fill the frame. I am
Any
a
other
wide
business
angle.
there, ladies or gentlemen?
No, I think we're done.
Are we good here? Yeah.
I think we're done, listeners. If you
I
have
just
any
want to tell you
questions,
about my new venture, and it'll only
Jesus,
take
go on.
40 minutes. It'll only take 40 minutes. No, I'm only messing. I have nothing to share. I can tell Kevin
as
wants
always.
to get out of here.
it was a
No,
pleasure.
I just need to visit the little boys' room. That's all.
Again, it's a weekly thing.
This is your second wee in an hour.
I'm sorry. I don't control my bladder.
Do you know what? You're drinking too much tea. That's
It's the apple juice or orange juice.
what. Okay, yeah.
the
Okay.
high iron content
You
orange
broke the
juice.
seal.
It's the iron inside
Okay,
this
we'll wrap
lovely
it up.
black
We'll
and
wrap it
white
up.
orange juice.
Okay, Kevin, we'll wrap it up, okay, because we need to go to our slash. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you learned a couple of things about telephoto lens. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll tell you what we shoot with and we'll give you a bit of advice, okay? As always, Kevin, Ronan, thank you very much for joining me.
Sean, it was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, the listener, for listening. Stay safe. We'll see you next Tuesday.
I'm only here because I had nothing else to do. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Tripod.
if you'd like to support us, please visit our Patreon.
And don't forget, folks, we do have all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and you can join us in our deadly Facebook community group as well.
And please leave a review. Reviews help, so leave a review. Yurt.